Today's episode, we're talking about getting out of a slump. If you feel stuck, if you feel like you're working, you're not making forward progress, well, this is an episode of SipTalk for you. Watch and or listen while we tackle tough and sometimes taboo topics filmed live over drinks. This platform allows us to articulate our thoughts and challenge our beliefs. This is SipTalk. Grab a drink and enjoy. All right, we are live. My name is Justin DiGiulio, joined by James, the Bosnator Boswell, philosopher, philanderer, philanthropist, philatelist, phlebotomist, a man of many PHs. This is SipTalk podcast, episode 266.
Yeah.
Coming at you from SipTalk world headquarters, the internet. James, how's it hanging down there in sunny South Carolina?
The preparations for Tenerife have begun.
We'll visit that in 1 second. I'll
be visiting that in 2 days.
I need to tease our title here is how to deal with a slump. To know when you're in a slump, how to find your way out of the slump, and just overall slump busting. So, got to ask you, what do you have to drink over there?
I've got myself a Mickey's malt liquor.
I've never even heard of that. Is that like a Disney type drink?
No.
It comes in what is that, an 8-ounce bottle?
No, it's 12. It's just short and fat.
Short and fat. All right.
Which I guess if you drink enough of them, you will become.
I got a nice glass of Canadian Club. Very excited to dip into that and to talk about slump busting. You tell me, are you ready to dive in?
I want to tease my trip to Tenerife.
I'm excited for you. Yeah, 2 days, 48 hours. What time's the flight?
I fly out of Charleston at 11 in the morning on Sunday, and then I have like 8 hours to kill in Newark.
I won't be visiting.
No, I wouldn't expect anybody to. But my current plan is a version of what I now call the Philadelphia strategy. The last time I went to Spain, I had like 8 hours in Philadelphia on a layover before I flew over the ocean. And my mom was kind enough to buy me a lounge pass for like the American Airlines lounge. Mm-hmm. And that came with an open bar.
I'm aware. Yeah.
Yeah. So like I spent 7.5 of those hours just knocking back bourbons. And I was flying to Spain with my mom, and she got in much later. So by the time she came to the airport and like we grouped up at like our departing gate, I was in a great mood. And so I'll be flying solo this time, but yeah, I think that's going to be the strategy.
Is to avoid the lounge for 8 hours?
No, is to spend as much time as possible in the lounge.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because like a day pass is like $80 or so. And if I'm drinking for 8 hours, my bar tab would be higher than $80. So I'm going to come out ahead on this one.
I got some credit cards that they give you. One of the perks is that you get the priority pass, and the priority pass basically it gets you into pretty much every one of the clubs except this like super elite ones. And sometimes you get a guest pass as well. So for those of you guys who aren't aware of this, you got to check your credit cards and see if this is one of the perks.
Oh, I have no idea about that. I'm just going to pay for it because like.
Well, I'm telling you, you may want to just check just in advance. It may not hurt.
Yeah, I can look, but yeah, I'll be there for 2 whole weeks, and I mean, I'm super pumped for it. And we're gonna get into this later on because this is like the reason why we're talking about this. Oh, absolutely. Like one thing that people ask me, like, are you afraid about like traveling to Europe right now as an American? I was like, absolutely not.
So let's get into it. So speaking of slump busting, James, tell me how would you define a slump?
My definition of a slump is when you suddenly start to feel like the results that you are getting aren't matching up with the efforts that you're putting in.
I think that's well put. But I would take it even a little level deeper for some, and sometimes you almost give up. So those efforts you just realize are kind of fruitless, and you just kind of give up in despair. But it's almost
that's a later stage of being in a slump is like you feel like you're trying really hard and you're not getting the results. And so then one of the natural reactions is say, screw it, I'm just not going to try anymore because I'm not getting anything out of this anyways.
Yeah, but I think it really means in whatever department your slump might be in, that you're just not making progress in the direction that you want to make, whether it's standstill or moving backwards, whether you're taking action or not. Things aren't going the direction you want them to.
Yeah.
And a slump can be, it could be like overall mentality and mood and what's the word I'm looking for? Just motivation wise, but it can also be in business. I started a new business, and I actually had a meeting early on with my team. I was like, "Hey guys, shit's it's going to look about the same for a while." All right. And I actually bought a hockey stick on eBay to be like, we're going to kind of be flat for a little while before we kind of start taking off. But in that time we're flat, it might feel like you're in a slump, but you guys got to understand that's part of the process. And we're going to get into the process of being in a slump and getting out of it. But business, relationships, I noticed in some relationships that I've had, like especially once we get to like the dead of winter and the late winter, where you're like, I just want to just get out and like start doing new things. And I just feel like I'm stuck in the house. And one negative thing about a relationship where you spend too much time with somebody is it's like sibling syndrome. So sometimes you need to be able to get out and start to do new things and explore, and being stuck in the house in the wintertime up here in the Northeast is tough. Fitness.
Well, I would also say when it comes to relationships, like another slump that people will feel is if you're single, inability to meet somebody.
Well, and that's also seasonal because this time of year, it's like no man's land. You go out, like people aren't doing things. It's a bad time of year, I think, to meet people. But back to fitness, and also seasonal. I think my fitness definitely peaks come like early July, and then it's kind of a sharp downhill because that's when you're out doing lots of fun stuff and drinking and barbecuing. And then you get into the winter season and you start eating heavier food, spending less time outside. I definitely did a little 4 mile run last Sunday, and it's the first run I've done it possibly all year. And 4 miles typically for me is not that much. Dude, it kicked my ass. So now
How slow were you?
Well, I did a very hilly course. It mostly seemed like all uphill with like a short but very sharp downhill. They were like 10-minute miles. It's like high nines. But I also, because last year I got injured, which has actually kept me off my feet running wise for a while. I wanted to just take it super easy. So I had a nice peaceful run, but I didn't think 950s.
No, I mean, I've been there. I did a run earlier this week. I did 2.5 miles at 8:30, and I was happy with that.
Yeah, but that's the time of year, and it's tough. Can you think of any other slumps that you've been in?
I'm in one right now, man.
Well, and so
normally, like I really like playing pool, and normally I perform pretty well when I'm playing in league. The pressure tends not to get to me. But this season, like last season, we did really well. We won a tournament. The team was feeling pretty good. And this season, we started off with like everybody losing in our first match. And like, it's like everybody on the team's in a slump, including myself. And like, it's really tough because like when I'm practicing, I feel fine. I shoot great. And then I get to the match and I'm playing like the actual opponent that if I were playing casually, just for fun, I'd probably be doing great. But like I just give away all sorts of mistakes. And the thing is like errors compound on themselves,
Mhm.
and like a negative mindset
I was just going to
is
say
self-reinforcing, and it's really hard to break out of, and I am struggling with it in pool right now.
that happens to salespeople. Once they go through a bad streak, you can almost smell the desperation on them, and it's a really bad. It's a
I
really
think of Glenn Ross.
Glenn Ross follows what four salesmen, and they all are just totally different personality. We're not going to give a synopsis of the movie. I'm trying to think about
But there's one salesman in Glenn Ross where like the reeks of desperation is his character.
Yeah. They're playing that what's the word I'm looking for? That's the stereotype of that. I'm trying to think of some slumps that I've been in, but definitely the fitness. So I think the thing is, and we'll talk a little bit more about getting out of the slump, but it's really the framing. So for me, the fitness thing is like, I'm like, all right, it's that time of year now. I got to switch gears here, start changing some things up. But the fitness is a big thing. I started several businesses over my lifetime, and that starting of the business where it literally feels like you're going backwards. Um, that is very tough, especially when you're spending money and not making money and not breaking even. And you're just like, all right, I got to keep doing this stuff. But at certain points in time, you're just like, you know what? I'm working so hard. I'm exhausted. Like, this is not going the way I want it to go. And that's the point where a lot of people quit,
And it
and
makes sense.
well, it does. And we haven't even talked about like emotional and mentality, but there's people that take it even further than that. We're not going to get into there, but if you are feeling not good, you call that suicide hotline.
Well, and Shy Angel's dropping a bunch of comments that are actually kind of getting ahead of where we are right now, because some of the suggestions are actually on our list. We just haven't gotten there yet.
Well, let's so just to kind of identify again what a slump is. It's when you're lacking that energy, you're lacking the enthusiasm, maybe you're procrastinating a lot more than you normally do, or you're feeling overwhelmed, or just disinterested in the things that you used to have as hobbies and that used to be fun. You may at a certain point with your slump and pool just be like, I don't even feel like playing. I don't want to go to this tournament. I'm over it. I'm sick of fucking losing. So if you guys have been in a slump, if you feel like you're in a slump, let us know in the comments what kind of slump you're in and how it feels. But I think by the end of the episode, what are we? How long are we into this? About 11 minutes. We're going to create some actionable steps that people can take to recognize that they're in a slump and to work their way out of a slump and start building momentum in the right direction. Fair enough?
Yep.
All right. You want to talk about what could cause a slump?
I mean, there's all sorts of things. Usually it's going to be started by some form of a setback. It's going to be in business. It's going to be losing a client. In sports or fitness, it's going to be having a bad day at the gym where you just feel like you can't put up the numbers that you normally do. Or other sports, it'll be losing to somebody that you feel like you should have beaten, or losing a match because you made mistakes, not because your opponent played particularly well. Because there's times where I've played pool and my opponent's just been better, and I can live with that. I hate the matches where I make mistakes that
Mm-hmm.
allow somebody else. And this is not luck, because I'm not saying I'm getting unlucky or my opponents are getting lucky, but I'm playing way below what I know I can do.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Uh,
I think it almost always has to start with some kind of a setback. If it's relationships, like if you're single, the slump starts with getting rejected. If you're in a relationship, the slump starts with some kind of disagreement that isn't resolved.
yeah. It's usually triggered by some external stressor. I would definitely say, but it could also be just like total burnout. A lot of, especially this time of year for real estate agents, these guys have been working, 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 and it is literally the slowest time of the year. And the market dictates success quite a bit. And when people are working really hard and they're not seeing that return, that can be it can really dismotivate you. And the thing is, I think if you're working really just the same hard or even harder, but you're seeing the results, it has a motivating effect.
Right.
When you're working really hard and you don't see the results, then you get burnt out.
Real quick, so Shy Angel says I don't understand the masculine competition. Like my brain's wired more towards being artistic, but I think even like for artistic people, like which I'm not, but like it would you can have slumps there where if you're a writer and you're working on a novel or something and you get halfway through and you just don't know what to have the characters do next, or you put a whole bunch of work into a painting, you step back and you look at it and you're like, this isn't very good.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have to be competitive, but oftentimes it is. But you can have slumps that are not competitive in nature.
Yeah, I don't think competition is an earmarker of a slump, or even a cause of a slump. But
No, it's just most easy to identify. And you think about it like in baseball, like when a hitter's going through a slump and someone's normally batting like 300 or something, and in the last 12 at bats, they've got one hit.
I think that is the thing about baseball is it is so mental. This is why a lot of baseball players are super superstitious, because you need kind of something to support the mentality that like you're on a hot streak or you're on a losing streak, and then if you're on a losing streak, you got to change something, right? You got to wear your underwear inside. Something has to change,
Yep.
and a lot of it is pure coincidence and luck, but it's almost placebo effect. That like it is
Yeah,
not
but
you
at
believe
the
it.
same time, like it does have an effect.
Well, that's what placebo is. I heard about this lawsuit with Nurofen, which is basically like Tylenol, but it's aspirin. Basically, the brand is Nurofen in the UK, and they got sued because they had all these different lines. So headache, back pain, uh, uh, not menopause, period pain, all these different things. And come to find out, it was literally the same active ingredient in the same dosage, just marketed differently in a different package. But here, the issue with the lawsuit was they were sold at different prices.
Well, and that's really like if you don't have the ability to look on the back of the box and see what the active ingredients are.
Yeah, but here's the thing: is like I think if I had regular aspirin and then like serious migraine aspirin, and that cost more, and I had a headache, I would probably take the serious migraine one that cost me $7, for a bottle of 100 versus the one that cost $2 for a bottle of 100, and I would believe that it's stronger.
Yeah, but like also I don't know, like whenever I have to buy like over the counter meds or whatever, I'm always looking at the active ingredients because I know what they all are.
Oh,
And
I'm American. I look at the brand name and buy the most expensive
no,
one.
I'm
Because
always looking to see like, all right, what drugs are in this and what are the dosages?
I'm,
And I'm always trying to figure that out. So
yeah,
like,
no,
I don't know, it's weird to me that somebody wouldn't do that.
well, but yeah, exactly the case, but it's pure placebo effect. It's the same active ingredient.
Well, I mean, it's like if you remember from like 15 or 20 years ago, head on, applied directly to the forehead.
I want to give some real estate examples because obviously this applies to my real estate agents and this time of year. But the market slowdown can make people feel like they're stuck when they're not getting a lot of leads, which is very true. I tell agents the ones that start in the winter and the slow season tend to last in the business because they have to work that much harder for a lead versus the guys that started with me last summer where the business was almost handed to them and then it slows down. They feel like they don't know what to do. They feel like they're really stuck. Agents and I had an agent who started 2.5 weeks ago. She got an application like a week and a half in, and she was on cloud nine, and then it fell through. And that can feel like you've been cut off at the knees, especially motivational wise. We get a lot of clients that change their mind or don't show up last minute. That's very frustrating. And those are the things that can just be the setup for that slump feeling.
Well, yeah, and it's getting back to what I said is like, how does a slump start? It almost always is with a setback of some sort.
Do you want to just mention kind of the two pillars of the brain chemistry that are making you feel like you're in a slump?
I mean, serotonin I'm less familiar with, but dopamine is the reward center. So that's whenever something good happens, you get a hit of dopamine, and like all sorts of things can trigger dopamine. Like getting a hot chick's number triggers dopamine. Eating a really good steak triggers dopamine. Like winning the lottery, even if it's just for like $20, triggers dopamine. And so when it like you get used to with whatever you're doing, you're used to putting in the work and suffering in expectation of that dopamine hit when you get your
Well,
success.
the dopamine's the reward, so you're seeking this reward. But what happens when you're in a slump is you're putting the work in and you're not getting those dopamine boosts.
Yeah, it's when you don't get that dopamine at the end of the struggle,
And that's
that's when the slump begins.
so serotonin is the second pillar in kind of the mentality that you have when you're in a slump, and the serotonin affects your confidence and mood. So when you have low serotonin, you're going to feel anxious, discouraged, overwhelmed, and I think it's like for fitness, sometimes you can, when you're not seeing the results and you're just feeling like I'm putting in this work, I'm not getting any reward. You're just feeling super discouraged. You're lacking, you're not getting the rewards, you're not getting the dopamine, you're not feeling confident, you don't have a good mood.
Well, and the two play off of each other too.
They're the two pillars of that you need to not be in a slump. When you have, I just said, you could be working your ass off and not seeing the results, and then you're in a slump or you're burnt out. But if you're working your ass off and even harder, but you're seeing the results, you don't have that burnout feeling. And that's
because the dopamine keeps you going.
Exactly. And your mood is high. You're not depressed or anxious because you have that high serotonin.
Yeah, and it's really it's vicious because both work in cycles where, like, if you're winning begets winning, and losing begets losing.
Well, look, every springtime I pick up the running, and it's really difficult to get into. It's really difficult to be hitting the gym on a regular basis. But once you start doing it for a month and a half, that's kind of when you start seeing those results, and that's when it starts to get easier to do it because you're seeing those results.
And I think this gets into the next section, which is like setting goals and kind of restructuring your approach to get that dopamine back into the system.
Well, first, before making that forward motion, let's agree on the fact that you need to understand and identify that you are actually in a slump, right? Because
is that really a difficult step?
Well, some people are just feeling depressed. They're not self-analyzing. They're not that self-aware. They just want to sit in bed and go to work and come home.
Well, I think we do need to differentiate between being in a slump versus having something like clinical depression.
Well, I was just thinking that too. And I think they go hand in hand. A slump can cause depression, and if you have clinical depression, you may actually need extra chemicals. You might actually need prescription.
If you have clinical depression, it's like you're in a slump all the time, and when you're not in a slump, it's very, very easy to get back into one. So, like, clinical depression is just playing life on hard mode.
So, but I also think your mentality and your perception of where you are is really important. If you're self-aware and self-actualized well enough to know that you're not where you want to be, and recognize that you are for things to change, you are actually going to have to take action. And to what you're saying, the next statement you're about to make is they don't have to be big actions, but it does have to be something. So go ahead.
So yeah, like last night after I lost my match, I just went to my team, and for the second week in a row, I just said to them, the beatings will continue until morale improves.
Where was that first stated? Because I love that.
I have no idea.
Speaking of quotes, we got a bar trivia answer from last week's question coming up in the next couple of minutes, and then I've got a great bar trivia question for the end.
All right. So yeah, like I think step one of getting out of a slump is setting small goals and dialing back your expectations, because because if you are expecting to get to the same success that you had before, you might be asking for too big of a jump, and so you can build back to that slowly and in small ways.
So, what you need is the dopamine. So you need some wins. The problem is if you set that goal too high and you have another loss, you continue to go in the wrong direction.
Right.
So when you get even a small win, you're getting a small dopamine hit, and it builds on itself. So I think if you recognize that you are in a slump, in whatever field it might be, fitness, relationships, finances, career, whatever it might be, you recognize where you are, and then you create some small action items. I've even heard people, I have lists. I mean, I have my office right now is a mess. We got tons of stuff in here, but I have these yellow notepads all over the place, and I put action items on them all the time: daily action items, weekly action items. And there's sometimes where I'll list, like I only have like 2 or 3, and I'm just like, ah, shit. But then I will go and add a handful that I've already done, or like easy ones that I can just start checking off the list right away. Because sometimes some of those action items just take way too much energy to even get started with. So I've got to build that momentum and get the ball rolling first.
Well, and if you've got a big action item, find a way of breaking it down into smaller steps.
Yeah. So the real estate example here is, if you need to sell 10 houses, an easier goal might be, I'll make 10 phone calls today. Because at least you're going to have that sense of accomplishment. But I think setting the small daily goals probably relatively easy. And then you can work yourself into the bigger goals.
Well, yeah, and if you design the steps right, the small steps feed into the bigger goal. So every step you're taking is progress towards achieving that end goal. Because, with running, for example, let's say you want to get back to running a 20-minute 5K, right?
Mm-hmm. Sure, that would be wonderful.
I would not be able to do that today if you held a gun to my head. And so if I were to say my goal is to make it to a 20-minute 5K, well, I'm probably at 26 or 27 minutes right now. So what do? I say, let's see how long it takes me to get to a 25-minute. And then once I get to the 25-minute, then say, okay, let's see if we can get to 24. And so on.
Well, and that's the thing about running is even if you start out pretty easy on yourself, if you just get 10 seconds better each run, as long as you're just pushing it just a little bit harder than the last time, and because the more you do, the fitter you get, the easier it becomes.
Dude, if I could get 10 seconds off of my 5K time every time I ran.
All right, let's see. What are your thoughts on gamifying the process?
Works for some.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking it's not. I can't buy into gamifying something for myself, but I think some people could.
I mean, I think like for like my pool struggles, it's I just need to keep on working and keep on practicing, and it's just, and if I'm trying to do too much advanced stuff, then I need to say, okay, no more advanced stuff. Play like a beginner and just do simple shots and don't try and be fancy or impressive. And sometimes that means that you won't get quite as good of a result, but you're also less likely to miss.
So,
And then build from there. And then once I can play simple and play confidently, then I can start adding back in the stuff that I know I can do. But
because it builds on itself, but you have
yeah,
to have that base layer of the confidence of the small wins first, and you can't set those goals. You can't set yourself, I'm going to get a great trick shot, and then the game will be easier from there because I'm going to have so much confidence from that trick shot. For me, for fitness is a big one when it's running or the gym. Sometimes I think the gym is even more difficult because you can go out and do a mile or 2 mile run in 10 to 15 minutes, but and then just come back, jump in the shower, and it's over with. But an hour-long workout, that can be tough. And also working a run is a jog, right? You just go. To me, doing a light, easy jog is really easy. I don't have to go out and just run like I'm running a race. But the workout thing is tough. Is tougher for me because you have to, at times during that workout, almost reach maximum exertion where you're really pushing yourself, and that can be tough. So the way that I kind of break down how to get started working out again is simply going to the gym, simply like putting on the workout clothes and just getting there. And it's tougher for me because my gym is in my basement. You would think it's easier, but you ask anybody who has workout equipment at home and they do not use it. So what I have to do is I actually have to treat it like a gym session, get dressed, go downstairs, and just fucking show up. And sometimes I'm just like, you know what? I'm going to do a nice light workout. But then once you get started, you kind of get in the groove. You're like, oh, let me up that weight, or let me pump out another couple reps. But you're already started. And the starting, I think, is the toughest part.
well, it's the same thing for a run. Is like if it's a little bit cold outside or whatever, you're just like, I don't want to deal with this. But like after even just a minute or two into the run, You're like, all right, I'm out here doing it.
But the Nike slogan, "Just do it,"
Yeah.
brought them from an $800 million a year company to a almost $9 billion a year company in a short amount of time, basically once they debuted that. And it was because they went from being a running shoe specialty athletic company to being a fitness company. And the slogan was basically just do it, like just get started. And that applied to any the wide spectrum of sports and fitness. And that's they picked up a ton of market share that way. All right, let me hit this bar trivia question because it's an easy one. And today's one is actually really cool. I'm really excited for today's because I don't know if you're going to get it. And it's stupid, silly, easy. But it's a great question. So last week's question, this one was, in my opinion, silly, easy. Forward, I'm heavy. Backwards, I'm not. What am I? Would you like to take a guess?
I didn't really think about this one.
Backwards, I'm not.
Oh, ton.
I tried to emphasize that. I tried to emphasize it last week and again this week. The word ton, T-O-N, forwards, I'm heavy. Backwards, I'm not. That was a good one. I thought it was silly, but I thought we'd get some people. Today's question, stay tuned towards the end of the episode. It's a good one. It's also super easy, but I think people will struggle with it. All right, let's talk about just getting the inspiration. So once you have a plan, like how do you stay on top of it? What do you do to how do you get the energy to do it?
Give yourself a reward of some sort afterwards. Like you go for a run, give yourself like, I don't know, like a chocolate bar or something.
You know what I was thinking? I was just thinking, like, sometimes when I have to eat healthy, I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna have the one plate of food. It's gonna be relatively healthy, but afterwards, I'm gonna have like one square of chocolate.
Right, that's what I'm saying. And like, there have been times where like, all right, well, I want to have a couple drinks tonight. All right, you're not allowed to have any alcohol whatsoever until you run 3 miles.
I did that last Sunday. I was like, all right, I really like to drink some beer today. And beer is a lot of calories, very heavy, easy to put on weight drinking beer. But I was like, I'm not going to do it if not going to do it unless I get a good run in, and not just like a quick 1 or 2 mile run. And then I'm going to take the Porsche and drive to the store and go get some beer. So I actually did the run, got all showered, shaved up, got dressed. I went down to the Porsche. Dude, the fucking battery was dead.
That's fun.
I was very unhappy, and I didn't have any beer.
Jorge says, go for a run, lose 200 calories, eat 250 calories of chocolate. You got to dial it in, but the idea is, like, start finding a way of associating good things with the things that you need to do. And it makes me think of a story, like somebody had a college roommate that would put a nicotine patch on their arm and then go run, but they would only have the nicotine when they were running, so they got addicted to both nicotine and running.
I think that's brilliant. I think that's really awesome. All right, I just want to talk a little bit about motivation because here's a tactic I use for business a lot. And I'm not a big, I mean, I guess probably I am, but I used to shit on it a lot and be very averse to it, is like motivational speakers and things like that. Now I embrace it because I understand it's mostly empty words, but also same fucking placebo effect. So I start the week every Monday and I listen to some type of motivational talk. And the thing is, a lot of the phrases are kind of now built into my mentality, and I can lean back on those things to draw motivation from. But I don't know, like podcasts and YouTube videos, I think are really helpful for me in terms of the motivational aspect.
I just hear the word screaming in my head is attitudinal beliefs.
All of our actions are either derived from love or fear.
Yeah, you know what movie I'm referencing.
Yeah, it's a Donnie Darko reference. Great movie, by the way. But no, I think podcasts, motivational videos, certain books, and one thing that really keeps me whenever I'm in a slump from sliding and hitting real like hardcore depression or inaction and an inability to take action is I have the tools. right? And then I can use those tools. But if you don't have the tools, you got to go find them, and you will be able to find the coping mechanisms and the basically like the structure to get out of it. If you're reading these books and listening to podcasts and these videos, and it might sound a little corny at first, but and I recognize it's corny, but it works.
And we get to this later on when like 2 steps from now of like seeking support is like, if you don't feel like you have the tools to address this, then like find support, and we'll touch back on that. But I want to go on to the self-care and mental reset part, because I think that's really important.
I want to give another real estate example, because we have here in our notes, revisiting your motivation. Okay. So when you are presented with that birthday cake and you're like, oh, that looks good. And you're like, well, I'll just have a little. But then you're like, I told myself I'm not going to do it. And you're like, well, it's just a little cake. You have to remember, what's the greater goal? So I tell real estate agents all the time, like, they're like, I'm really struggling. I'm getting very frustrated. I'm like, all right, yeah, you've been doing this for 3 weeks. You've been doing this for 2.5 months, or you've been doing this for 5 months, or whatever it is. Before you became a real estate agent, what did you think this career? Did you think this was going to be tough? You thought this was going to be challenging? You didn't think this was going to be a cakewalk the whole time, right? You knew it was going to be tough. Well, let me tell you something. This is what tough looks like. Tough looks like you're struggling and the world is telling you to turn around and stop. But you have to decide, I decided I wanted to do this. I'm going to create a system and a strategy and an accountability system. And I think that's kind of where we're going, 2 steps from now, I think. But this is the direction we're going. I'm going to hold myself accountable. I'm going to do those things, but it's building the structure and building the ladder to climb your way out.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And also, if you guys have techniques that you use to build inspiration or climb your way out of the hole, please share it in the comments. Let us know how you find your way out of being stuck. All right, I'll let you hit this self-care.
I want to skip to the one that I put in there, and then we can get to yours. But I think that depending on the kind of slump that you're in, like, take a step away briefly. And like, if you're in like some kind of a mental slump or like an acute depression, like, change your surroundings. Take a weekend trip somewhere. Break your routine. Reconnect with someone that you haven't spoken to in a while. Go somewhere that you haven't been before.
Well, that's literally what you're doing right now. You're taking that. You've been miserable for the last couple of months, and now you're like, all right, and you've been planning this for a while, because you had that. You had a solution, you had an idea in mind, and now it's just impending, 2 days from now.
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend like the Tenerife trip isn't exactly this. It's I need to get out of my surroundings. I need to go somewhere I haven't been. I need to put myself in a number of scenarios that are going to be uncomfortable and new. And who knows if it's going to work or not, but I think it's worth taking it on.
You definitely sometimes need to just reframe the situation, and sometimes it's really difficult to do when you're in it. I've had my mind buried in this new real estate office for months, and it can be really depressing. I had a pretty large real estate company before, and we recently reopened a new office, and it's way smaller. We don't have all the things that the old real estate office used to have. And it's very frustrating to not have all those resources, to not have the same level of class with the establishment and even the furniture. I was in my chair today and the chair was creaking, and I was like, oh, I can't wait until I go buy like a $1,500 fucking top of the line chair, but we're not there yet. And I'm not going to invest the money in the pleasantries and the luxuries until we're able to do that, but we're back down to the bottom, having started something brand new. But then one last thing, and I'll let you actually do that quick shout out. By the way, if you're watching us, don't forget to visit SipTalkPodcast.com. If you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch live, we can see your comments. If you're watching on Instagram or TikTok, we have Rosh Galeb in the background feeding us your comments from Instagram, but we can't see your comments super real time. Don't forget also to subscribe to the audio podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the video podcast on YouTube. That's the end of my promo. Go ahead, James.
I just want to give a shout out to Shy Angel for all the comments. We've been reading them. We've been trying to stay on script as much as possible. I've been going back to like taking a break from things. Like if it's a business or work related slump, like take a personal day, like or ask your boss if they can put you on a different project so you can get a change of pace. And I mean, if you're self employed, then like kind of go back to like the setting the small goals or redefine your goals to something that's a little bit more achievable. And when it comes to sports or fitness, like sometimes increasing your training or your practice is not going to work. Like sometimes you need to just take a complete step away because like sometimes like not doing the thing for a while helps you forget bad habits that you didn't know you had.
It's just a matter of like getting this reset, and sometimes you just need to start fresh, and that fresh start, you end up coming in at a different approach angle. I forgot my statement when I kind of went into our self promo there. But sometimes my nose is deep into the real estate. Sometimes I forget to kind of come up for air and be like, oh, wait a second. Life is fucking great, actually. Like I'm doing really good on every front. I've just been so like microscopically focused on this business. Sometimes I feel like woe is me. When I know we're headed in the right direction, I know we're doing the right things, but it does feel sometimes like you're putting in all that effort and nothing's changing. But you just come up from air and you're like, you know what? There's a lot of shit going for me right now that's really fucking good.
And the other thing that I think about is sometimes like when you go through a slump, what it really is kind of a skills, and why can I not think of this word? Not coagulation, but like that, like like you're recombining your skills in a way, and like you have to take a couple steps back, and then once you get used to this new configuration of skills that you have, you come back way stronger. And so a lot of times when you come out of a slump, like you are way better than you were at the level that you held yourself to before the slump. It's like you'll have these breakthroughs, and like it could be again just sticking with running because it's easy. It's like you're running 22 5Ks, 2022, and then like a couple weeks you can't break 25. Then you can take a couple days off, and then the next week you crack out like a 20-30.
Well, a lot with exercise. You take that. Sometimes your body just needs that recharge. Let's talk about some other physical factors though that are going to affect your motivation. Sleep, and then also we're talking about exercise is one thing, but just exercise in general is going to help you break out of a slump. I love and simultaneously hate just raw dogging the workout where you go in with no headphones and I work out in my basement. I got a big TV sometimes I listen to, but sometimes when I just work out in total silence, it gives your brain that space to just not have this constant barrage of cell phone notifications and TV and music. Sometimes you just need that mental space. Nutrition is another big thing. Like I think people are just mostly. I drink so much fucking water, and like hydration for me is key. When I am dehydrated, I can't think straight. I really can't think straight. So I think hydration is a big one. You like meditation?
Not really my thing.
That's not my thing either.
I struggle with it because the whole point of meditation is to just like not think, and I just can't do that.
Yeah. I like the idea of meditation for other people.
I'm not shitting on the practice. I'm just saying, like,
shut up. For the people that won't shut up, for the people that just leave needless comments on the fucking internet. Oh man, I got to tell you this, and we'll get right back to it. It's just a quick segue. So on Saturday, I was driving into work last Saturday. So like 8:00 in the morning or something, and I watched somebody get pulled over right in front of me. And then I'm looking in my mirror, a cop is whizzing up to me. He's got to be doing like 95, 100 miles an hour. I had just gotten on the highway. I'm doing 65, 67 tops. This guy is flying up behind me. I see him coming in the mirror, gets right alongside me, slams on the brakes, and gets behind me. I'm like, oh, I'm getting pulled over. I don't know why I'm getting pulled over. So I just instantly start pulling over. He puts his lights on, pulls me over. Probably less than 100 yards in front of the last guy. As I come to a stop, a third cop car is pulling over a third car in front of me. So we're 6 cars in a row, 3 of them being cop cars. I was like, this is
And
wild.
you weren't speeding?
I wasn't speeding. He had seen me eating while I was driving and stopped me for a warning to tell me that eating while driving is distracted driving and you're supposed to keep 2 hands on the wheel at all times. I thought it was silly. But I posted in the Nextdoor app. Nextdoor is like a neighborhood social media app where people just are like, hey, like, are they paving?
I keep on getting invitations to join my neighborhood version of that, and I no.
It's like, oh, are they paving South Road this month or not? But whatever. I was like, hey guys, just heads up, cops are out full force this weekend. I got pulled over in front of somebody else that was being pulled over. While I was being pulled over, a third car got pulled over. There were 6 of us on a lineup and 3 cops. Just heads up, drive safe this weekend. And guess what? That post went fucking viral on the Nextdoor app with like thousands and thousands of engagements, but mostly people telling me how shame on me for driving distracted and I'm putting the neighborhood at risk and just admonishing me for, I was eating toast and like I was doing the speed limit. I checked my mirrors like constantly like a fucking hawk and I saw the cop coming for like a mile, didn't think I was doing anything wrong. So every once in a while, I'll have a cup of coffee in the car and like as I'm passing like a cop on the side of the road, I like drink the coffee as to look innocent. I'm like, oh, I'm just drinking coffee here.
Dude, I don't know. Like the whole toxicity on any of those neighborhood apps, like I want nothing to do with it.
But what I was going to say is one, those are the people that should fucking meditate, the people making these comments.
Yeah.
But the next thing I was going to bring that into, segue into, is social media. Sometimes you need a fucking social media break. You just got to get off the apps. You got to just take this total detox because it gets overwhelming, and you always have this. I remember back in the early days of the apps before they hit the algorithm, and I used to jump on the apps, and what I would do is I would scroll all the way back to the last post that I saw. So if I logged in at 11 a.m. and last was on there at 10 p.m., I'd scroll all the way back to the last post I saw at 10 p.m. But then they changed it up. Nothing's in order. There's no conquering and getting to the bottom of the posts. There's just an endless number of posts. And even if you watch them all, they're going to have suggested posts in there. And there's no, like, I like to keep my inbox at inbox 0. And anything that's in my inbox is like an action item. When there's
I can't do that.
when there's too many emails in my inbox, I get like totally overwhelmed.
I'm at inbox 22,660.
I'm probably by the end. I was at like 14 before this podcast because it was at like 2021 when I got home, and I got it down to like 13, 14. When we wrap, it'll probably be back to like 40 something. So before I go to sleep, I'll bring it back down to 10 or something.
All right, we got 13 minutes to go.
Yeah,
so
12 minutes. Yeah. Go ahead.
So yeah, seeking support, get friends, get mentors, get accountability partners, get somebody to help you through whatever slump you have. If it's sports, it's a coach. If it's business, it's your boss. If you're self-employed, then maybe like it's another person that you know through a networking event, somebody that you know that's in an adjacent business. Like get some help and ask people, "Hey, I'm struggling here. What's going on?"
Having a second person, and also not only, they can also help provide perspective. They can give you this third party perspective where they're going to be able to see what you can't see. We just talked about how sometimes stepping back helps, but even before you step back, just asking somebody for support or even to hold you accountable. Like you set up your action item plan, but you don't do shit. Like sometimes it's nice to be like, yo, you said you were going to do this morning. Like, let's get moving.
Yeah.
And even hiring a third party coach. Early days in real estate, I was spending all this time like reading books and watching videos and reading articles on the internet. But then when I actually went for a paid coaching class, then I was like, oh, actually, this is really good stuff. So sometimes actual like third party coaching can be worth it.
Well, especially if like the coach is going to kind of tell you stuff that might be hard to hear.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of times it is going to be tough to hear, but I mean, it's probably going to be real. Like people have your best interest in mind. They're not going to tell you this stuff just to.
Yeah, but you might have like if you're going to like friends or family members, they might be a little bit too kind to you when that's not what you need.
True. I talk about this in my training in the office. Is that I'm like, guys, I think you guys like me because I'm authentic, and I recognize that this is not a third grade classroom. You're going to get fewer pats on the back from me and more. What the fuck? You're like, hey, like, let's. I don't know. I don't want to get into my actual criticism because I can be a little rough, but sometimes, and I recognize that sometimes you have to do what it takes to elicit an emotional response from somebody. And I think a good coach will do that. Not every coach is great, but
Yeah, but it shouldn't be personally insulting.
well, not personally insulting. It shouldn't be. It needs
No, but
to.
you see some coaches that do that.
Well, I wouldn't. I wouldn't personally attack somebody, but I might attack like, hey, you didn't. You said you were going to do this, this, and this. You didn't do anything. Like,
Yeah, but I'm talking about like you can find plenty of examples online of like sports coaches personally insulting their players to motivate them.
sometimes it works. I don't know if you've ever heard of some great directors who like really fucked with the actors. It's kind of and they ended up being some great parts. I don't know. I don't know if that's worth it or not. I'm not levying a personal opinion on that, but I have heard about it. Where to next? I want to get to this bar trivia question. So I know we have a
Well,
little.
I mean, I want to talk about like when it comes to like this is kind of rolling all of it together, and I might have talked about this on the podcast before, but like I don't know, probably about 9 years ago, I was having a really tough time in Charleston, and I was able to get help from my mother to fly me up to New York, and then like you put me up in New York City for a night or two. You let me borrow your car to drive up to Albany for like a couple days, and then like put me up in like another night in New York City and like drove me back to the airport. And having the support from friends and family and having the ability to change my surroundings and do something different was enough to snap me out of my depression at that time. And like
we'll call depression a slump, but also you need to be aware whether or not it's clinical depression and actually.
it was definitely acute. Like I was very down on myself,
No, I think it
but
was borderline. I think it could have, had you not addressed it, it could have actually become a lot worse.
it may be. But like when I came back to Charleston, I was like, all right, things still aren't great, but compared to how I felt 5 or 6 days ago, I feel like I can face my problems now, whereas before I couldn't.
And I think that's the solution, right? Is you got to find some way to recognize the issue and create an actionable plan moving forward. So you need to identify that something needs to change, right? You're not in a good place. Something needs to change. And that's that you're in the slump. And maybe you have been working, maybe you've been putting in that effort, but you're just not seeing the results that you need. So identifying one, you're not where you want to be, and what you're doing is not working. So something needs to change. Your current state needs to change, and the action and the steps that you're putting into trying to fix it right now also need to change because they're not fucking working.
Yeah, it's you do need to identify where is the most likely area that I am failing in and address that first.
And that's step one. Yeah. Step two,
Create
James.
small goals. Well, I mean, I already closed out of that because if I could,
This is our rubric we're working on.
I know, but go ahead. You
So,
got it
yeah,
in front of you.
I'll lead here. Step two. That was a layup that you just you were staring off.
Yeah, I've been in a slump. What do you expect? I'm gonna miss layups.
The layup just bounced 3 times off the court there. Is creating small and achievable goals and understanding that the role that dopamine and serotonin play in getting into a slump and getting over a slump. That you need the small rewards, you need the small wins, and I think that's definitely got to be step two, is kind of creating a small framework in which you can actually get some wins within. Step three is you've identified where you are and that things need to change. You've identified some action steps to move forward. But three, to catalyze that, you need some motivation. So you're going to have to seek something that's going to help inspire you, whether it's a friend or a coach or motivational tapes or CDs or podcasts or YouTube videos. You got to find something to help push you forward or pull you. And then step 4 is taking care of yourself. So personal care, fitness, health wise. If you're not taking care of yourself mentally and physically, it's going to be tough to be putting in that extra effort. And you got to be taking care.
You're not giving yourself a fair chance.
Yeah, it's like it doesn't matter. I don't know. I think, and there's small wins within the self-care, right? You start taking better care of yourself, and it builds upon itself. It makes you want to be a better you. And then kind of the last part would be, as you're working your way out of this, is finding a greater support system. So accountability partners, anybody that's going to hold you accountable and be in it with you to kind of push you and help you through it. Am I missing anything here?
Nah, I'm just thinking about, like, I'm not a tattoo guy, but if I were to get a tattoo,
Go ahead.
I would get there's my favorite quote ever is from The Myth of Sisyphus, written by Camus.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, there is no fate that cannot be surmounted by scorn.
And you would have that tattooed on yourself? On the inner forearm?
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. There's no fate that cannot be surmounted by scorn.
So just makes me think of the movie Memento.
Yeah, it makes me think of the movie Snatch, actually.
No,
like at the very end when Boris the Bullet Dodger is storming out of his house, pissed off with the AK or the M16.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I aspire to be that angry.
All right, I got. That's not the note we needed to finish this podcast.
No, but it's just a great scene.
All right, this week's bar trivia question. I love it, by the way. It's a great question. Excuse the name. I didn't come up with this name. Heidi Bush has a cottage situated on a well-treed lot in northern Ontario. She enjoys keeping her lot in top condition by fertilizing, pruning, removing dead wood and broken branches. However, Heidi has a very strange habit regarding her little forest. Every once in a while, she'll chop down a perfectly healthy tree and put it in a large pot. She'll water the tree and fertilize it, and a short time later, when she grows tired of it, she burns it. Could there be any rationale for why Heidi does this seemingly very strange behavior? She tends to her trees, and then she chops one down, and she pots it, and she cares for it, and then she grows tired of it and sets it on fire.
Yes.
If you know the answer to this week's bar trivia question, go to SipTalkPodcast.com, click on the bar trivia tab, and answer this week's bar trivia question for a chance to win some cool Sip Talk merch like pint glasses or dog t-shirts or beach towels or shot glasses or coffee.
Are those t-shirts to be worn by dogs?
They are t-shirts to be worn by dogs. Yeah, I think we had a Sip Talk t-shirt, but I'm not sure on that. I know we definitely.
I wasn't sure if it was like Sip Talk as a dog logo or if it was a Sip Talk t-shirt to be worn by a dog.
No,
it's ambiguous.
We have a dog t-shirt. It's a t-shirt for dogs. And I got that because I thought Rosh might like it, but I guess I probably should give him one. But he's got to get a bar trivia question right, and the bar trivia is tougher than you would think. But you're all eligible. Again, visit SipTalkPodcast.com, answer the bar trivia question, buy us a drink. We love it when you go to SipTalkPodcast.com and you buy us a drink. There's a subscription drink option too, where you can buy us a shot a week, and we will do a shot on air.
Of your choice.
Well, if we have it in stock.
Right, pick Malort.
my bar stock, I haven't.
Do you have Malort?
No.
Have you tried it?
No, I'm not. There's another one called Sotol. You ever heard of that?
No.
It's like a tequila sort of mezcal.
If you have a chance, spend the money and get yourself a bottle of Malort. You will be very angry with me.
Sounds like it tastes like Jägermeister, but grosser.
Shockingly good guess.
the name rhymes with wart, and it's a liquor, so it can't be that good. I want to thank you guys for watching this episode of Sip Talk. Don't forget to subscribe. Visit SipTalkPodcast.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or our video version where you can see our pretty faces on YouTube. I want to thank Rosh Galeb, who is here with us in the trenches. You don't see him in the background, but he is feeding us your comments live. He is one of the producers. I want to thank him very much. We will see you guys a week from now. You will see us a week from now, excuse me. Thank you for joining.
Possibly, well, maybe. It depends on my Wi-Fi connection in Tenerife.
Adios.
All right, you made it this far. Thank you. Don't forget, hit up SipTalkPodcast.com, and I'll see you. You'll see me next time. Adios.
Go ahead. Lady in 46 South Road. 46 South Road.